and welcome to Creative Vitality Jam Sessions. Here we have intimate conversations with extraordinary dance and theater artists about reimagining creativity and supporting and building community. CVJS and I walk in solidarity and as allies for equality, justice, and respect. Black Lives Matter. Let's stop Asian hate. Let's unite. I'm Helen Pickett, and today's guest is Megan Williams, dancer, choreographer, and educator, and repetiteur. We have known each other since 1994. Drum roll, 1994. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Hi.
So good to see you.
You too. And I just have to just say briefly our first meeting, where we met, because we were both in the middle of our career, and it's a nice,
Yes. So we were both dancing, all the time and touring the world, and we met at the Adelaide Festival in Australia, and both Frankfurt Ballet and Mark Morris Dance Group were the sort of headlining in an incredible festival that was everything else was Pacific Rim art, like Samoan dancing and Indonesian puppet theater and all these different things. And we were there together at the same time. So we were, I saw your show. I don't know if you saw any of our shows.
I went. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and we, there was this incredible Fringe Festival we were all partaking in. Anyway, we saw each other then. Yeah. And sometimes that would happen on the road. You would intersect with another company somewhere, which happened.
It's like one of my bright memories of touring with Frankfurt Ballet was that festival.
Yeah. Oh, it was an amazing festival. We were there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah.
And we got to, and it's nice to be anywhere for that long because you can settle in and get a little bit of a routine going. And there was just so much good art to see. And yeah.
Did you go to the beach as well?
We went to the nude beach.
Of course you did.
Yes, I have pictures of the nude beach, and we went to Koala Island, and we went to, we did a lot of little mini field trips. But we did go to the beach, but there was no ozone. Like, you and me with our freckles.
I know.
I have a picture of me with like a big hat and no clothes on.
Nice.
What was I thinking?
You weren't, and that was
it. No,
you were in our 20s.
20-something years old, exactly right.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that was a highlight definitely for me too. Lots of touring, but that one was really special.
It's super, super nice to see you. I've missed you. We got to see each other a lot in the period of time when I was teaching at Purchase, which was really, really nice. I have such good memories of that time with Carol Walker, and
you made a beautiful dance there on the students.
And I think it was my second choreography.
Yeah, no, you were just getting going, and that was and then that's when I asked you to make something for me too during that time. Like it struck me, I had been teaching there for a while and had 2 small kids at home and had taken a little hiatus from performing, but I was starting to put together something that I thought might be a solo show, like the way that I could perform would be by myself. And so I had started commissioning things. And one day in the hallway, you just walked by and I was like, what about Helen? Like that would be, and I remember stopping you in the hallway and saying, I have this idea. And you were like, I don't know, And it was fun because I remember you wanted me to wear socks, and I said I would love my feet to be bare, and you were like, I don't know, I've never made a piece for someone with their toes exposed, but that's what we ended up doing, which was great.
And I remember the rehearsals at the Baryshnikov Center.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And then you just revived this.
Well, it was so the Dance Now Festival. Dance Now is this incredible production engine that's been going on for decades, and they've just had their 25th anniversary, and had to do it, of course, all virtually. And I've performed in that festival multiple times as a soloist mostly, even though I made a trio here and there. I was choreographing some things. And so as part of their festival during these pandemic times, they have done chapters, and they release 4 or 5 films at a time, and some of them are newly commissioned films, all artists who've been part of the festival for the last 25 years. And then some of them were archival. So they asked me, instead of commissioning a new work from me, they said, what if we revived something that you've done before? And I thought it would be a work of my own. And they're like, what about that great dance of Helen Pickett's that you did? So, well, because they wanted to sort of showcase me as a dancer.
Yeah.
And that was from, you know, it was always from a show called 40 Up, which
Okay.
Dance Now had produced at the then Dance Theater Workshop, which is now New York Live Arts. And it was a great you didn't see the show because you were somewhere
I
making ballet. You weren't around. I remember
I
you.
didn't get to see that show, and I missed this time because I was under the impression that I could see it after the fact.
Well, you can still. You can see it on the website, on the Dance Now website. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I want to
Yeah,
see it
you
again.
you can still see it. So it's yeah. So you made this solo for me, and then they wanted to revive it, and it was kind of fun to see it in the context of people making pandemic-y work right now. Some of it very political, some of it very emotional, and then there was this kind of highly physical, charged up solo with me in a
Oh, wait.
proscenium space,
Yeah.
which was also kind of interesting. I'm alone, like it still had the resonance of being something a little intense and angsty, like it kind of suited the current times in an interesting way to look at it again.
Well, it's Tom Waits.
It's Tom Waits, yeah,
Yeah.
yelling at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that piece is called One Captured Kiss.
Yeah. I loved that title.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So it was fun to
I
revive it.
remember
And
that gesture.
yeah, and there was something
Yes,
that I felt
exactly.
it on my neck. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were working on these sort of feminine sensation
Yeah.
material. Yeah. So that was fun to bring that back. And you were just 40 when you made
Yeah.
that dance, and
Exactly.
I'm a few years older than you, so you made it in under the wire as a 40 up choreographer.
Exactly. Well, okay. So wait a minute. Where are you in the world? That's the first question for
Where
everybody.
I am in Mamaroneck, New York, which sits on the unceded land of the Lenape-Wappinger people. I'm just going to do a land acknowledgement because we've been doing that in
Yeah.
these days of honoring the ancestors. But yeah, I'm in Westchester County, New York City, which is about 40 minutes away from Manhattan. And I've lived here for 20 years with my husband, and my kids don't live at home anymore. They're adults, but I'm here in my living room with my great grandmother
Yeah.
and my father-in-law's sculpture. So that's my background.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, actually, we just covered kind of the first question, which was about the one woman show at Joe's Pub, which you had, you know, was quite successful. But I want to still go into this question because it ties in with your venture now, your creative venture, which is the Megan Williams Dance Project, founded in 2016. And I know Dance Now commissioned, you were the Dance Now commissioned artist in 2018,
Mhm,
premiering your first full length
mhm.
work, one woman show, at Joe's Pub in the public in New York City to great acclaim. But I might add that that this was your inaugural project, I think, for the Megan Williams Dance Project. And if it wasn't, what was? And then can you tell us about the one woman show? And because I read a great review from Deborah Jowett. So can you tell us about it and
Yeah.
your new creative venture?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Dance Now Festival has been going on for some time, and it's a great little. Eventually evolved to be at Joe's Pub at the Public Theater in New York, and Joe's Pub is a cabaret space.
Yeah,
So the stage is a postage stamp,
yeah,
but people sit drinking cocktails and eating French fries. It's kind of a great warm audience, and the initial festival was called Dance-mopolitan because the idea was that you were cocktailing and watching dance at the same time.
yeah.
But the format is a 5-minute dance that has a complete idea. So any artist that they invite to do They people apply, but they also invite people in. So I had done that off and on over the years because it was just a great way for me to make a dance kind of quickly without a lot of commitment, and I could just dance alone or with one other person. So a few years ago, so I went to grad school in 2013. I don't know, that's
Oh,
something we haven't talked about because I
I
know
didn't know that.
you went
Wow.
back to grad school. Yeah, so I that's when I left my job teaching at Purchase College and went to grad school in 2013. And when I came out of that program at Sarah Lawrence with Sarah Rudner as my mentor, and I was feeling like I could be a choreographer a little more than, even though I'd been making little things over many, many, many years and making student works, all of a sudden I felt like my voice was ready to be a little bit more broadcast and with a little more chutzpah behind it than maybe I'd had before. But I was also feeling the need to dance because as a student, I was a full-time grad student, so I was taking class every day, and I was feeling very very much like I could actually perform again at age 50 something years old. So I made a solo for myself, but with three men. The idea was that they could toss me. I just wanted to be lifted and taught. I mean, I was sort of longing for that kind of experience again. And so I made a quartet called One Woman Show. And
Oh,
it was based on my my never-ending love and passion for old movie musicals, and also old like film noir women in tragic roles. And I just grew up as sort of a latchkey kid in Los Angeles. As a kid, my parents worked, and I watched a lot of movies on TV. And I realized that a lot of my sort of way of seeing women in the world was in these kind of fantastic archetypes of, really strong, powerful, but super sexualized women, and how men treated them. And so this was when I made One Woman Show, the quartet, was right in the midst of the Me Too kind of surgence. So I was realizing that I was looking at these kind of feminine archetypes, but I was also looking at how men treated them. So I made a mashup of movie musical music and little quotations from All About Eve and other kinds of stories, and made a little dance that was 5 minutes long with these men throwing me all over the place. And that won me the commission to make a bigger version of that dance. So One Woman Show became a dance for 9 people on that same little stage, with me as a woman of a certain age. I had an ingenue woman. It was sort of like the story of, um, me watching my younger self or her taking over my role. And I had a show within a show where we had many finales. There were sequence. The whole show ended in lots of sequence. So it was sort of a musical theater. I did a bunch of lip syncing actually of text and other. I didn't sing per se, but that's what One Woman Show became, and they commissioned me to expand on that initial concept, which I did.
beautiful.
So yeah, and then we toured it in a couple places, and then it was supposed to be done again this year, but of course that didn't happen. It was a viable piece that actually had legs that was hopefully going to be done a few more times. We tried it on a slightly bigger space, but it really felt great to do it. Like my thing was, how many people can I get onto that stage and still have people dancing full out?
Well, the thing is that it will have legs, like all of us,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
have I have my newest ballet that I did is going to be 3 years after the fact coming to the Kennedy, but it's
is
still
that the Crucible?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
So it's, we're all in the same boat, but the great thing is that the people, the presenters are honoring the stuff also that got kind of wiped from the slate, which is great. It's because it didn't and doesn't have to be that way. So it's kind of
Correct.
that solidarity is a really nice thing to feel. It's a
Yeah,
really
yeah. No, I feel it too. But I also know that people are trying to rethink structures, so that we're going back to something better than. And
Yeah, as our wonderful President Biden says, build back better.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's lots of, within the dance sphere, lots of people working hard at that.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a thriving career with performing, creating, teaching as a repetiteur. Was there a specific catalyst that brought you to this? So we didn't cover this, brought you to the decision to create a company. And were the two short dance films you created for, is it
The Katona Museum?
Corona Museum of Art in October, were they also MWDP Productions?
Well, yeah. So Megan Williams Dance Projects is it's hard to call it a company. Like I was really resistant to saying that I wanted a dance company because
Right.
didn't want to create the infrastructure
Okay.
of or a board. I don't have a board. I
Right,
don't
right, right.
have. I'm a fiscally sponsored entity. So through Pentacle in New York, I have fiscal sponsorship, which means I can raise money and but I have yet to get to that, and I'm not quite sure, particularly now, like to be able to expand and actually call it a company and what my goals were in terms of, which is why I call it Megan Williams Dance Projects, because it's really
Project.
about project based, um, where I can bring together dancers and work project to project. And we were just kind of getting rolling when the pandemic hit. So um, the catalyst was maybe this commission, and also that I started working with more than one or two dancers. And I think the community that makes company happen is probably what drew me to it. And now, a couple of the dancers I work with, they all say, you have a company, like you always said you didn't want one, but like here we are. And my commitment to those artists who are, I think the thing that drives me the most is them and their need to work and their commitment to me. And they're all freelancers, so they work with other people. Um, I can't imagine having them as a full-time thing because I don't know. I don't necessarily want to go on tour again. These are all big life decisions. But working with those people, I think that was the catalytic thing, is like we really had to work intensely to make a full evening thing. And I just fell in love with everybody. And those same people are still in my Zoom dining room studio working with me on the projects that we're about to do outdoors this summer. So it is the same people. So
Nice.
yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, staying with MWDP.
I didn't really answer the film question.
No, oh yeah, okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. It's all falls under the umbrella of Megan Williams Dance Projects, but that was something that we were supposed to do live last spring, was to perform at their gala. And it's a museum, it's a beautiful museum here in Westchester County, and I'm trying to do more stuff in my area because I can get some grant monies if I do more things around here. But of course, their in-person gala flipped to a virtual gala, so we ended up making two films, and I've never made films before, so that's kind of how that worked. And I just used three dancers because they didn't have lots of money to give me, but it was a way. And then we took this trio that we made for one of the films and actually performed it at Arts on Site, which is in November. So there was a little live performance. It was scary. There was about 8 people in the audience each show. We did 4 shows, but we did it, and it was great
Yeah,
for the dancers. It was really
right.
great for the dancers who were just longing to perform.
And it is, us dancer folk, we're built, one of our basic fundamental building blocks is resilience. So we're really good in these situations
We
because
are.
we know what we have to do. And we're so used to being self-starters.
That's right.
A lot
And
of the
being
stuff that,
adaptable. I think about transferable skills too. We're always thinking like, I could do almost anything because I dance. The self-starter thing is true, but it's also like the adaptability thing is really
that's it.
prominent. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's why dancers and dancer folk, not just dancers, have found our way through. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So staying with the project, you were collaborating for over a year with composer Eve Beglarian. Is that how you say her name?
Larian, yeah.
Beglarian. And on an evening length work with live music supported by O'Donnell Green Foundation. That would have premiered at Dance Space NYC in March 2020. And 1 year prior, you were the Artistic Partnership Initiative Fellow at the Center for Ballet and the Arts at New York University in September 2019. Can you speak about your yet to be released COVID sabotaged work with Eve? And was the API Fellowship affiliated with the new work?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Eve Beglarian, if you don't know who she is, she's an incredible contemporary composer, much lauded, lettered person. She's won all the awards. And she's someone I actually met when we were in junior high school in Los Angeles. So, and we weren't, she was older than me. And, then I kind of followed her career and we resynced up, you know, many years later. And the idea was to build an evening of work using her catalog and commissioning her to write another couple of small pieces to kind of wed the thing together. And I had started working on a piece sort of independent of this larger work of using her music. And that's where we kind of got our friendship sort of bloomed. It was something called Play Like a Girl. And so I premiered that. Probably the first Megan Williams Dance Projects thing was in a festival called Soaking Wet at a theater on the Upper West Side, the West End Theater, hence the wet part. And Eve was kind of turned on by what I was doing, and anyway, we thought we just got talking about how we could collaborate. Meanwhile, I was interested in applying for one of the Center for Ballet and the Arts fellowships because I had through my time of working with Mark Morris with ballet companies and staging his ballet work, I'd been kind of deemed someone in Mark Morris's what's the word, restaging gang as a ballet-eyed person. So I thought maybe I could kind of move all this toward some kind of choreographic work that was centered around actually looking at making or researching a ballet, in quotes, like what would that mean for me as a modern dancer to actually create a ballet work? And I didn't really know what those answers were. So I applied for a fellowship. I got this one that was actually about being affiliated with another company. So myself and Kaylee Kwan, who's with Ballet X, she and I were the two fellows at the same time in that little kind of specialized fellowship. But what it did is it gave me studio space, which, is just the gift of gifts, but also free access to, I had an office, I had, it was just an incredible thing. And they're still giving me, support, which it's like once you're in there, they continue to give you support. And had we gotten to the point where we were premiering the work, they were giving me the studio to bring all of my musicians and everything in. So we worked on it for a long time. It's in two halves, the evening, with two solo works, or a duet and a solo that would be me performing. It was kind of bridging it with sort of generationally with me. And 5 musicians playing all of Eve's music live, and members of the Young People's Chorus of New York City, who are these kids who sing, who Eve has worked with, and they were going to open the show and be in the middle of it too. So it was kind of a big thing. And the O'Donnell Green Foundation gave me a chunk of change for the live music part of it and the newly commissioned piece of music. So it's all, to me, it's like in a box on a shelf, that whole show right now. Same dancers who are working with me now, but it's full of touching and partnering and throwing around. I mean, it's highly rigorous work. Most of it, there's part of it that feels like a ballet. We were kind of looking at desire as a theme, and I did a lot of research. We watched a lot of films of ballets with romantic duets in them. I mean, we were looking at, Macmillan's Romeo and Juliet. We were looking, like and sort of deconstructing passionate embrace. That was one of my themes too. Anyway, it's embedded in there, and then some very structural, um, formal kind of material, and also looking at ballet lexicon and translating it into barefoot dancing. Like, who can do a gargouillade? Like, who wants to do a gargouillade?
Well, I mean, and why can't that translate beautifully into bear? I mean,
Yeah.
what's it's kind of a beautiful analogy. The fabric of a ballet slipper to bare feet. I mean, very thin, so
Yeah.
that valence can be taken away, and
Oh, yeah.
so yeah.
Well, those are the things we were looking at, and using our time at the center for that kind of research. So yeah, and we were so close. We had our last the show would have premiered on March 26th last year, and we had our last rehearsal like 2 weeks before that, saying, I think this is it. I don't think we're going to get to do the show. And then we did cancel the show, and then they gave us some new dates in December 2020, and then it then the whole plug was pulled, and it's like to be determined. I would love to do it. Eve wants to do it. Eve and I went, Eve lives in Vermont right now, and I I went and visited her in October. Took my one little time that I've been anywhere since in this past year. And she filmed me dancing outside as like we tried to create a version of the solo that would have been in the middle of the show that was a solo about aging, actually, because as she puts it, she says, we're in the autumn of our lives. She's in her early 60s, she's a little bit older than me. Um, I haven't made it into a film yet. I have tons of content from that weekend, and I'm a little, like I'm not a filmmaker, and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to bring, an editor into the process.
You know what?
Anyway,
I highly recommend it. I do, because I have learned, and that's another thing from us dancer folk. We love to learn. We know that our artistic lives and our regular lives depend upon the learning. So
so
I highly recommend finding an editor, because what I've done with the 12 films I made is I've sat with these people on Zoom and I've learned.
yeah,
And it's wonderful, because I wouldn't have made those choices.
yeah,
I contribute to the ideas, but it's their métier.
right,
So
right,
what they
exactly.
bring, is well, it's necessary
Yeah.
in filmmaking. So I highly recommend going
Yeah,
with.
thanks for that. Because it's a little bit on the shelf, and even I talked about it a bunch. She's like, you could make 10 different versions of this film and just send me the one you like the best, and she'll score it. And I said, yeah, there was something because it's me in it, that me just not wanting to look at myself. And I edited another film. Like, I actually made another film with the dancers who work with me in a park. I don't think I sent you that one, but I had a good time editing it myself. But it takes a lot of time,
Yeah,
and it's a commitment that I like the idea of collaborating with an editor though, so I might get there. I'm
yeah,
thinking that might be something I do in my extra time when I'm on this trip I'm about to take. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so this is a really long intro. So have a sip of your tea or whatever it is, and we'll listen. Megan, you performed and toured internationally in the 1980s with the companies of Laura Glenn, Ohad Naharine, and Mark Heim. Then in 1988, you joined the Mark Morris Dance Group, dancing for 10 years, touring worldwide, teaching and appearing in several films, including Falling Downstairs with Yo-Yo Ma, The Hidden Soul of Harmony, I love that title, by the way, The Hard Nut, and Dido and Aeneas. Recently, you created the role of Lady Capulet in Morris's 2009 Romeo and Juliet, on motifs of Shakespeare. In addition, you continue your affiliation with Mark Morris as a guest rehearsal director, staging Morris's work on Purchase Dance Company, Vassar, Repetiteur Company, Fieldston Dance Company, the Boston Ballet, the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, and on students at the Juilliard School, George Mason, and Les Aides de la Danse in Paris, Interlochen Arts Academy, and Cal State Long Beach, among others. A formidable career with so much variety. I share with you the experience of a long relationship with a director choreographer. Only a small percentage has this experience, really working with a creator as a fundamental part or the only part of what you're doing as a professional, as a dancer. What do you think these years of being a part of the creative process gave you? Can you tell us about the creative process with Mark in relationship to that?
Mhm.
And how do you imbue his spirit into the work when you teach his dances? And the reason why I ask that
Mhm.
is because, I don't know, but I don't know if you've experienced this or heard this, but Frankfurt ballet dancers are very keen on saying, this is my version of Bill's work that I'm teaching, because Bill is alive and he comes in and gives his 2 cents. So that was the basis of that question as well. Like, how do you wrangle that?
Yeah,
And I can ask the questions again if you need them.
sure. I mean, it's a great question. Well, going back, I think your first one is about being around a creative process and being part of a creator's experience. Um, and I think I was set up, I went to the Juilliard school learning a lot of like legacy modern dance work that already existed. Paul Taylor's Esplanade and solos from Martha Graham's Seraphic Dialogue, things like this. Uh, well, the Misa Brevis by Jose Limon. I learned an Alvin Ailey piece. There's a bunch of things that were, already rep pieces. But I also had the experience of working with Anna Sokolow in
Mm.
3 original works while I was a student. And I'd never really, as a kid in high school, I was in a teen jazz company in Toronto, where the work was made on me. I was, but it was all kind of studio material. Like it felt like we were doing just dance class, but on stage. Um, and I think working with Anna Sokolow was the first time that I felt like I was in the room, in the moment, paying attention. And I was very much that sort of old school idea, which we've shifted for students now, which is you're the tool for the creator, right? You as the body in the room. It didn't feel collaborative with Anna Sokolow. It was like, you come here, you do this, faster, slower, whatever it is. And that was kind of how I came out of school. When I first danced with Ohad Naharin, I was learning work of his before his time in Batsheva when he was in New York City. And it was very much like that, like do as I say, let the work speak for itself. I don't need a whole lot of input from you verbally in the studio, never. By the time I got to Mark, I feel like he's a meticulous and prepared artist in the studio. He walks in and he knows what he wants to do. He doesn't do, unlike Bill, who works a lot through improvisational form to get where
Yeah,
he's
but he's extremely prepared. Bill is extremely
prepared. Yeah,
prepared.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. But Mark would come in and say, let's do this. Da-da-da-da-da. And there it was. And we just had to know it and learn it. And we were very much fast on our feet. There was a certain discipline in his studio. I mean, lots of humor and fun and camaraderie, but there was never any wasted time. You took a break because you were like, okay, he would say, take 4. Like, and that's how for the longest time, it was when Mark was still a smoker, like the break was as long as a cigarette. Like you knew exactly how long that was. I mean, he would go on the fire escape wherever we were rehearsing. It was before he had a building when we were rehearsing at ABT and places like this. Anyway, the discipline of that studio, you felt like you were very much a part of the work. Like if you weren't paying attention to what was going on, then he couldn't do his job. So you had to come in as prepared as him
Mm.
and ready to go. Um, and I felt like there was, like things would happen in the studio that were like revelations. Like all of a sudden, all the math in his brain would fall into place, and all the dancers would go, "Whoa!" Like that makes sense. We couldn't figure out what he was making us do, and then it would all fall into place. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like that, and watching that sort of system, I mean, I don't work exactly like that now. Like I'm a little bit more exploratory process based, just because of my, maybe my own, and this is me in this moment in time.
Hmm.
But when I teach his work, I can remember those moments. Like it's fun to restage work that you were in the original cast of. And it's not, certainly not everything I restage I was in the original cast. I maybe eventually performed it. The ballet works that I restage, I never performed.
Hmm.
Like the first one I stage of his was a piece he made on San Francisco Ballet, but I was restaging it on the Boston Ballet. And so I had to do this, a shitload of homework with video and talking to Mark and learning material, and then being in the studio and like saying, show, this is it, or can you show me this partnering thing? Um, but the math of it and the logic of it was what that I could walk into the space and understand and kind of be committed to sharing. Like this is how Mark thinks about music in this moment. This is how it's almost always about how he's hearing the music or delivering the spatial structure. Um, and so much of his work is also like rooted in his folk dance experience. And he was a flamenco dancer as a kid, and as a teenager, he was in a Balkan folk ensemble in Seattle. So there's all this sort of patterning and stuff that has to do with community and has to do with, Mark. People think of Mark as a big ego and a kind of impresario kind of personality, but what his favorite kind of dancing is like hold hands in a circle, grab a partner, and oompa around the space. And he has all these sort of, and he taught us all these folk dance forms that then he could insert wherever he needed to. A schottisch, like a hambo, like all these weird things that came from Serbo-Croatian dancing and things like this. Um, I'm kind of rambling around it, but I feel like when I teach his work, particularly when I teach it to young students, I feel a little bit like I'm teaching like Shakespeare text or something. Like I can kind of commit to like the organization of it is so clear and
Yeah.
specific, and a student will look at it and go, well, that looks kind of easy, until they realize how intricate and how puzzly it all is. Um, Going back to what you said about like this is like teaching it like this is my version of it, it's always going to be sort of my version of it. Like this is like when I go and watch, um, let's say the students at Vassar doing this piece called Grand Duo, I can tell that I taught this one move. I went and saw that piece staged by someone else at the Juilliard School, and I could tell that that guy had staged that work, my good
Yeah,
friend Bo,
because the
because
point.
their physical body is demonstrating the material.
And I think what I meant by that, and chime in, what I meant by it is that instead of saying so and so does it like this, like saying that the ownership, it's saying I do it like so and so, and
Right.
I like it. I am more comfortable with, and I think it's more honest to say this is my version of so and so's work.
Correct. And I
Yeah,
and I completely own that. Like I say,
yeah,
particularly when I wasn't in the original cast, like I
yeah.
can say this, and also, if you're teaching students too, or professional dancers in a company, whatever it is you're teaching them the fact that there's oral tradition and there's legacy and there's roots and there's growth. Like a piece can change and grow because of who's doing it, right? So, um, yeah, it sort of heightens the ability for each person to have agency within the work too. And Mark, certainly when I came into, I could say it's the same, the Mark Morris dance group too. You look at a group of individuals, like he's never been that interested in everybody being the same. Even when he puts everybody in the same costume, there's still this sort of feeling that your version of the step is the right version, but God forbid you're not on the, if the timing has to be like the spacing and the timing are absolute, and you within that are you. Like, and he gives all his dancers always that agency to be themselves. Um, yeah.
I mean, it sounds so much of what you say in your experience uh, is the experience I had also with Bill. Very like agency, individuality, opinion, prepared.
Education, yeah, preparedness. But didn't he also, Bill, I know, and I've never met him actually. I mean, maybe met him in passing, but um, Mark is interested in the person. He says, "What books are you reading right now?" Like, he wants to know what you watched on TV last night. The people who dance in his realm have to be intellectually interesting to him, socially interesting to him. I mean, I think as he gets older and they're younger, there's, like the social part of it is a little more complex. But certainly when I was in the company, he was still dancing in the company.
Right.
Like, and so there was this other thing about being both a peer and not a peer, but we would hang out,
Mm.
and as time went on, and later when I came back to be in Romeo and Juliet, and eventually when he was hiring me to do other projects with him alone, we were friends and talking and going to see, he'd say, come to the ballet with me or come see this, we would hang out together. And those are the dancers he's interested in. Like, not that he has to hang out with everybody, but he wants to be able to have a conversation with you as much as he wants to be able to say, do these steps and this is my work. And
Yeah.
so, because that informs the work too.
Yeah. Also sounds very familiar. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I love hearing about that because, you I have one experience and I love talking to, it's not, like I said, not so often that a fellow artist has had
A
that
similar
experience,
experience.
because it's less and less these days, especially the way, let's say, ballet companies are set up in the directorship. Far less choreographers in that position of directorship, and as a director choreographer. And Mark made his own group, right? He
Right.
didn't step in. And so because it's more rare, um, I love hearing the experience, and we're similar ages, and it was a time that we were swirling together in our art worlds.
Well, there's a commitment to the culture of the company too, and the culture of the making of the work. I mean, I remember the first time I saw Frankfurt Ballet was predated you, being in the company. It was at City Center, and
I was
oh,
there.
maybe you were there. I don't know. I mean, I was.
That was my first tour with the company.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being. I mean, I was. I don't know. I feel like I was still in school when I saw it. I
I
was
think
right
the
out of
first
school.
trip to City Center was 87
Yeah.
or
I feel
88.
like it was even earlier. Anyway, I mean, I remember just like sort of being, I had only at that point seen sort of ballet companies doing repertory by multiple choreographers. Like, I
Yeah.
remember the first time Netherlands Dance Theater came to the Met, I was a student at Juilliard, like we all snuck in, but still it was Erie Killian's work, but there was some other people on the program. I mean, he was maybe still someone who was doing, they were showing mostly his work. But then going to see City Ballet or ABT or the Joffrey, who I saw a lot of when I was in school, was lots of different choreographers. So to go see Frankfurt Ballet at City Center and see just one voice and see like three things in repertoire, three pieces. Um, yeah, amazing kind
Yeah.
of impact it had on me. Like, oh, like one person could do all these different things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, So, in our time at the Conservatory of Dance at Purchase, you were a professor there from 2000 to 2013. serving on the modern dance faculty. I will add that you were featured in Dance Teacher magazine in 2010 and 2014. And in your 13 years at Purchase, sorry, not Anne, in
Mm.
your 13 years at Purchase, what aspects emerged as the important tenets of imparting knowledge? What did you learn to know of through those years? What did your students teach you in those years? And teaching continues to be a big part of your life. Can you tell us where you teach now? So I can repeat those questions since it was kind of a string.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think I started teaching at Purchase because I had moved out of the city. I had a small child and was getting ready to have a second one. And I had staged a Mark Morris dance on the students at Purchase prior to that, while I was still in Mark's company. Um, and so Carol Walker, who was then the dean and had, knew me. And so when I moved out of the city and I emailed her and I said, I'm nearby if you ever need a sub. And like the next day she called me and said, actually, we need someone to teach modern partnering starting in 2 weeks. So like it just sort of fell into place.
Yeah.
I had been teaching for a lot of my life. Like I think I was drawn to teaching even back in high school. Like I was, I'm a Leo. I was a little bit of a bossy pants, and I just sort of thought, in my mind, it's like, well, I'm kind of good at this, so I could teach people how to do. Like it was naive, but it also I had a little bit of energy around doing that. So when I was in Mark's company, anytime there was a master class to be taught somewhere, if we were in some college town, um, not everybody in Mark's company at the time was interested in teaching. And now everybody in his company teaches. That's part of the culture of being the dance center. There's lots of different ways to teach different things. Um, but I would raise my hand. I go, yeah, I'll teach one of those classes. And so I started over the years while in the Mark Morris dance group teaching a lot. So by the time I was not in the company full time anymore, teaching just seemed the logical path to go on. And so I started teaching at Purchase and really looking at like how I was taught in conservatory at Juilliard, the things that resonated as being positive and the things that didn't. And so I was, with all respect to all of my teachers there were lots of old ideas that I thought I could push aside to hold on to the things that were meaningful to me. And one of the things was sort of reciprocity in the studio, which I think instinctually I was leaning into, mostly because I didn't always feel like I was in a scenario where I was told to shut up and dance and just be dutiful. I wanted to hear what the students had to say. There was something interesting to me about that. So that was sort of the first thing, is like kind of change the hierarchy of the studio so that um, I wasn't the all-knowing master and these were my, that there was some way to find a middle space. And then I started studying with Irene Dowd. And so my interest in anatomy and realizing for my own physical self, I wanted to understand more about like what I'm asking people to do and how functionally they could do it better. So I
And an
really
amazing teacher she was.
amazing
We took the
teacher.
classes together.
Yeah, we did an
Um,
intensive together, like a 5 or 6 day intensive.
yeah.
But she also taught every summer at the National Ballet School of Canada in Toronto, a summer workshop. And I did every summer while I was teaching at Purchase. I probably did 6 of those.
Wow.
And it was international teachers, and there was a ballet track and a modern dance track. Peggy Baker,
Oh,
incredible. Peggy Baker taught the modern dance track, but we would meet at these anatomy lectures in between. There was a couple times this wonderful Bournonville person from the Royal Danish Ballet. We would watch her coach the students. I mean, that was another reason why like my ballet sensibility was always being nurtured in that environment. This really holistic space in the National Ballet of Canada for training.
mm.
So I kept bringing back the idea of how can we train people in ways that are more healthy, more, emotionally healthy, but also not forcing things in the body. So these were all the kind of tenets, if you're going to call them tenets, that I was kind of cultivating, not with a mission at the front end, but just kind of as things went on. And I think a lot of my students, I run into, you teach that long in one place. I have lots of students out there who are fabulous professionals and there's 3 people dancing in my work now who were my students at Purchase. Right. And that was like totally an accident. It was not something I pursued. Like, let me find some Purchase alum to be in my work. It's just that I happened to be in a ballet class, and this one of these young women, I went, oh, wow, look at her now as a fully grown up person. Let me ask her to be in this thing I'm doing. And then and then another, former student reached out to me and said, if you ever need another dancer. And I'm like, yeah, that person would be great. So it's, like it created relationships.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so my teaching sensibility, I think it is very much based on meeting the student where they are, which I think is a great entry point for any level that you're teaching. If you're teaching beginners, if you're teaching intermediate, if and my great love is to teach professional dancers. Like, I teach open classes too, which I'm doing via Zoom. Every Friday I teach an open ballet class, with live music on this format, which is problematic and strange, but great. And I'm teaching ballet at Sarah Lawrence College right now. So after I mentioned earlier that I went to grad school. So I left Purchase. I was feeling, to be full disclosure, feeling like I was on a very narrow track there as a teacher. I was teaching modern dance. I was an adjunct. I was never being offered more of a full-time job. Wasn't sure if I even wanted one. I was
Wow.
interested in choreography and not getting any kind of uplift for that there. I did a lot of administrative work there, so I was kind of being groomed a little bit for an administrative role, and wasn't sure if that's the way I wanted to go. And I think I was also just, turning 50 and wanted to like figure out what the hell I was going to do next. So grad school became the gateway for me to like leave there in a kind of elegant way. You say, I'm going to go to school. Like, I didn't have to make it a big deal. I could just leave. And there was a lot of stuff going on there that I just felt it was time for me to leave.
Yeah.
So I left and went to grad school. And after one of my goals in grad school was to learn how to teach anatomy for dancers. And I thought it was just going to be, about becoming a choreographer. I didn't know what I was going to do. But so when I left I went to Sarah Lawrence for graduate school, and my first jobs, the first few years out of graduate school, was I taught at Connecticut College for a couple years teaching ballet and anatomy. And then I taught at Marymount teaching anatomy. I taught at Hunter College teaching anatomy. And then I have doubled back to Sarah Lawrence teaching ballet. So that's my teaching life right now is not modern dance classes, which is pretty interesting.
It's funny, right? You
Yeah.
never know this life. That's something
I
I've
would
grown
never
up.
have thought I'd be teaching ballet, and it's challenging for me, and I'm also at Sarah Lawrence because it's a liberal arts school. It's not a conservatory. It's not training professionals. It doesn't even have a dance major.
I
So
didn't
it's,
know that.
yeah, well, you have something called a dance third, which means a third of your components are in dance.
Okay.
But you don't have to audition into that. You can do it no matter what level, So it's an interesting population to teach because they're super smart young adults with big ideas about the world, and I have to kind of figure out like how to, to use ballet as a form for knowing other things about
Yeah.
yourself. That's how I look at it. It's kind of
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
that's the long answer about my teaching
I
life.
love it. I love it.
And
So,
I also teach people with Parkinson's disease, and I've been doing that for 10 years.
wow.
And since the pandemic, I've taught 95 classes via Zoom to my Parkinson's students. I also do that with live music. A friend of mine who's a jazz musician plays for those classes. So that's a
Beautiful.
whole other kind of teaching that's just about community and connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've come to the 3 questions that everybody gets asked. These are about art and then about, so activism. I'm switching it. I'm gonna ask that question first, and then we'll go to the other 2. In
Mhm.
supporting and building a more equitable dance community, what are some specific, and this is daily practices that we can be active with?
Whew. Wow.
Daily practices.
Daily practices. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, I'm just going to preface that by saying that I've been part of the work of the Dance Artists National Collective in the last year, which is an ongoing and ever growing group of freelance artists, dance artists who are working toward equity, sustainability, and better working conditions for dancers,
Good.
and advocating for dancers as workers.
Mm.
So that's one thing I'm pretty much daily doing, which is advocating for dancers as workers, as people that deserve a living wage. And I think another, daily practice for me has to do with reading and research and keeping my eyes open. I think social media can be really a great way to stay in touch with people. I'm trying to listen to younger voices. Older people know a lot, but young people are at the forefront of all kind of revolutionary action right now. And so in the dance in DANC, it's has a weird acronym, Dance Artist National Collective. I'm one of the older people involved.
Mm.
Because I still consider myself a freelance dance artist. People still hire me to perform in things, and so that would be in the dance realm, like just trying to move forward, particularly in this sticky time of like, what can I do on a daily basis that would support a dancer in their pursuit of more equitable, you know,
Yeah,
kind of,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, 'cause that's what it's about. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the continued work.
And I think it's a part, as my part as an educator too, is to listen as
Yeah,
much as it is to talk, because as you can tell, I could talk. But I think we've all learned that in this past year that listening is the first step, and listening to the disenfranchised and the marginalized, and understanding how deep listening and being able to ask back, like, I think I heard you say this, am I right? As opposed to saying, oh yeah, I got this, like me as this white woman, middle-aged woman can figure it all out. I feel very humbled by what's been happening in
mm,
all of our spheres,
yeah,
particularly in the art world.
yeah. Usually starts in the art world, doesn't it?
Yes, always,
Yeah.
for centuries.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like
That's why artists need to be listened to.
yeah, yeah, and we'll risk as a group, arts as a group, we tend to risk far more than other groups, and put, you know, uh, and support and put opinions on the line to say in our artwork,
That's right.
and so artists have always been at the forefront of catalysts of change, and it's
Because
another.
what do we have to lose? We don't really have anything to,
Well,
that's,
we have a lot to lose. I
we
do
have a
agree
lot to
with that.
lose. No, I know, but we also, I think artists are brave in that if they don't put out their beliefs and their, um, the things that they're fighting for in their work, then yeah. I mean, and I don't make hyper politicized work. It's not, but I think by nature of being an artist,
Mm,
what we do is political. Like just, like and that's an interesting thing
mm.
to look at.
Yeah, but the not having anything to lose is a comment I don't agree with, and I heard you,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's very often people, to use your word, marginalized people, which women are a part of that group, we have lost a great deal by speaking our voice. But at the same time, we do it. And that's what's amazing. And that's what's courageous. And that's what's brave.
No, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. Can you share a spontaneous, because there's so many prefacing, a spontaneous favorite impactful memory from your creative life?
Spontaneous. Yeah. You would ask me to sort of, it's like hard when you know in advance you're going to be asked to be spontaneous is always kind of challenging. But
Oh,
um, well, like, because we had started out by talking about the Adelaide Festival, but I was thinking um, about getting to perform with Mark on a big stage for the first time, like getting to be alone on the stage at the State Theater, which has another name now. Um, and that was pretty amazing. Like I was in this piece, L'Allegro, Il Penseroso ed il Moderato. We call it L'Allegro. That was the first work of Mark's I was in 1988 when we first moved to Brussels. But I was in the core then. Like I wasn't in the sort of senior company at that point. And eventually I got a solo that was kind of the featured solo in the first act of that show. And I was alone on that stage. That was pretty great. I know the first time you're like given, and it felt, I mean, you could probably speak to this too, like when you feel like you've been entrusted with something by the person whose work you do and admire and respect. Like you feel like maybe you've earned a certain kind of status, and so that was pretty important.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess
It
more.
tingles when I listen because I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and it has a certain kind of feeling that you can't even really describe.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would say more recently, getting to do this show that was my own work and having a whole bunch of people come and having someone review, like I had not gotten to that sort of place of making something that was big enough, that felt like I had made something of some value. That was the more recent one, was the one woman show experience, was pretty great.
Yeah.
And I do part of it. There's one part of it where I'm kind of in my underwear, and that was everybody. No, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're so brave." And I'm like, "Really? I don't know. I just feel like I'm being myself."
Mhm.
And that felt good too. That felt like something I could just, yeah.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Mm.
And what you've shared so many insights, but what do you have an insight about that you can share about living a creative life?
Well, I mean, it sounds kind of cliche to say it's not easy, but but that everything you do is feeds into the creative life. Like
Mm.
it's not separate from, I mean, I think I'm always trying to um, push up against people that say, "Oh, you do dance because you love it. You're so lucky you do something you love so much." And that's always, and I get bristly about that. It's like, well, I'm sorry you don't love your job. It's often what I say to the person. They're like, "Oh, well," like it's like a commitment to work. I think having a creative life is a commitment to work. It's not just that it happens all around you, and you have to work at it, and there's discipline in it, and I'm a procrastinator. I mean, I definitely procrastinate about different aspects of it, but when I'm deeply involved in a creative process, time goes away. There's that sort of wonderful feeling when you're in a studio, and I know you've experienced when you're making something and you're in this sort of certain zone and the people around you are responding, and then someone says like time's up and you go, oh, but I was just getting going. Like you're hitting flow, or whatever whatever you want to call it, whatever neurological thing that's happening. um and that's worth all the other kind of arguing or defending, or just to be in that place.
It's
And
true.
I think people who aren't necessarily creative, I think more people can get to that place and live part of their lives creatively, even if they don't think of themselves as creatives or as artists. Because
I
I think
think you hit the nail on the head is that I think we have to change the thinking that life in itself is a creative act. So I think it's just
exactly.
planting that seed in people sooner that you don't have to go for a creative life. You are
You are.
in creation
Exactly.
the moment you commit to the present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is why art in schools when kids are small is so important,
Yes.
because most children experience that at some point in their lives when they're being asked to draw or listen to music or dance or whatever they're being asked to do in a school environment, and then it's kind of beaten out of you, or you're factioned off like the art people and the non-art people. I wish that people that could be more integrated through education when kids are younger, because adults sometimes they get to the place like I'm not good at art, or I'm not, but you want to cultivate art goers, art listeners, art watchers, and though that's a creative act. To sit and watch a ballet is a creative act.
Yeah. It
You know? But I think you're right. I think life is more creative than people feel like they have to be good at it to be creative. And I don't know if that's really true, you know.
yeah, I don't think that is true.
No.
Um, but
And
that's
I think that's why a lot of people cook and do things that,
exactly.
like you can find pleasure and flow and in the moment decision making. I mean, I think cooking is a good example of,
Yeah.
you know,
Parenting's a great example.
yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Oh gosh, Megan, it's always at the end of these talks, I'm so happy. It's like I get to be with friends again. I say it all the time, but Megan, it was so wonderful sitting with you
Well, thank
and hearing your inspirational trajectory, how you've reimagined yourself, how you're doing things now. It's just been such a pleasure. I want to direct viewers to find out more about you. Do you have a place? Do you have a website? Are you on Instagram? Something where they can find out more about you.
So I have a website which I have to keep up a little bit more right now. I'll call it Megan, it's mwdanceprojects.com.
Okay.
And that's all one word, projects with an S at the end. And then I'm at Megan Williams Dance on Instagram. And I do actually post a lot of, I'm finding Instagram quite pleasurable right now, especially during these times. To sort of connect, to get to watch little bits of people's work, and it's a great way for people to support each other,
Yeah.
and I know people have disdain for the idea of liking something and then moving on, but I feel it. Like, and I have a bunch of people who are in the field from all different, and when they notice something and I notice something of theirs, I think it's important. I think we feel, especially right now, community is what we need more than anything, and we have it in this odd way. Um, we all want to touch each other again, but there's a little bit of touching that happens in the social media sphere that I think is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And speaking of sharing and community, we will upload this today and on Instagram so you can share it as much as you want, I hope. There will be a short bio that accompanies Megan's video in the description page on the YouTube channel. We have new guests every week, and our next guest will feature Richard Chen C, freelance dance teacher, coach, and regisseur. Now is my time for thanks. Gracie Spina, thank you so much. The dance world, thank you so much. I have to thank you every single time for upholding me and giving me so much and us so much in this lifetime. And Megan, thank you so much. Yes, it
Yes,
was
thank
so
you,
good
Helen.
seeing you.
Thank you for inviting me. I really, really appreciate it. So important right now to feel seen and heard, and
Yeah.
we're in a funny era of sort of obsolescence, battling. We're trying to kind of keep seen. Yeah.
Oh no, we're not.
No, we're not. Well, For 5 minutes on a certain day, maybe. But thank you,
So,
because I feel lifted up. Thank you so much.
thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.